The church was silent. Every guest stared in shock as Robert stood at the altar, his face pale, his voice trembling. "I'll marry the next person who walks through that door," he said. Gasps echoed across the hall. His mother whispered his name in disbelief. His best man tried to stop him, but Robert didn't move. His fiancée had just run away minutes before the ceremony, leaving him humiliated, abandoned in front of hundreds of people. And then, the door creaked open. A girl stepped in, barefoot, drenched from the rain, clutching a torn backpack. Her hair stuck to her face, her eyes red from crying. She looked lost, fragile. And yet, when her gaze met Robert's, something inside him froze. The crowd started to laugh, whispers spreading through the room. "She's homeless," someone muttered. "She just wandered in from the street." But Robert didn't blink. He just looked at her, really looked, and for the first time that night, the pain in his chest quieted. The girl whispered, her voice trembling, I didn't mean to interrupt. I just needed somewhere dry to sit." Robert took a deep breath, his heart pounding. Then he said softly, "Maybe you were meant to walk in." The crowd gasped again. And at that moment, no one could have imagined what was about to unfold. Because this stranger wasn't just lost. She was about to change everything he thought he knew about love, forgiveness, and fate. If this moment moved you already, don't go anywhere. Stay with us, because what happens next will leave you speechless. Before that night, before she ever stepped into that church, Lily's life had already been through more storms than most people could survive. She was only 22, but the world had already taken too much from her. Her mother had fallen ill when Lily was just a teenager. With no father in sight and no family willing to help, Lily dropped out of school to take care of her. They lived in a tiny apartment above a laundry shop, the kind that always smelled like detergent and steam. Every night, Lily would sit by the small window, counting coins from her shift at the diner downstairs, whispering, "Just one more week of medicine, Mom. We'll be okay." But okay never came. The illness grew worse, and soon, even the medicine became too expensive. The hospital bills piled up, the landlord started banging on their door, and Lily found herself in a cruel race, between earning enough to save her mother and watching the person she loved most fade away. And then one night, she lost. Her mother passed quietly, with Lily's hand in hers, whispering, "You'll find kindness again, sweetheart. Don't stop believing in good people." Those words became the only thing Lily carried with her, along with the little cross necklace her mother wore. But kindness was hard to find. Days turned to weeks. The apartment was taken. Her few belongings were thrown out. And the world didn't stop for her grief. It simply walked around her. She slept in bus stations, washed up in public bathrooms, and took leftovers from behind the diner where she once worked. Each night she whispered, "Tomorrow I'll find a way." But tomorrow always looked the same, cold, hungry, endless. Until that afternoon, when rain started to fall and she ran for shelter, shivering beneath a tall building she didn't even recognize. From the open doors came music, laughter, warmth, and the faint sound of wedding bells. She didn't mean to walk in. She just wanted somewhere dry to sit. But fate had other plans. Because inside that hall stood a man about to make the strangest promise of his life. And within minutes, their two broken worlds were about to collide. The church had fallen silent again. All eyes were on Robert, and the drenched girl standing in the doorway. The priest hesitated, unsure whether to step in, but Robert did something no one expected. He walked down the aisle, his shoes echoing against the marble floor, until he stood right in front of her. Everyone thought he was about to send her away. Instead, he took off his suit jacket and gently placed it around her shoulders. "You're freezing," he said softly. She tried to speak, but her lips trembled too much. I shouldn't be here." Robert smiled faintly. "Neither should I." The guests started murmuring again, phones raised, some filming, others whispering. But Robert didn't care. For the first time in months, maybe years, His heart wasn't heavy with anger, it was calm. He turned to the priest and said something that silenced the room once more. "Go on," he said. "You said vows aren't about where someone comes from, but what's in their heart." "I meant what I said. I'll marry the next person who walks in. So let's finish this." The priest froze. The girl, Lily, stepped back in shock. "No, you can't mean that. You don't even know me." Robert looked at her gently. "Maybe not yet, but I know pain when I see it." The crowd burst into gasps and whispers again. Someone laughed. His ex's best friend muttered, "He's lost it." But Lily just stared at him, unsure whether this was kindness or madness. Robert turned toward the guests. "You can laugh if you want," he said quietly. "But I've spent my whole life chasing perfection. Maybe it's time I chase something real." A stunned silence filled the hall. The priest looked between them, then back to Robert, and slowly, hesitantly, began to speak again. Lily's heart raced. The room blurred. Her eyes filled with tears. She had no idea why this stranger was doing this. But deep down, something told her this was more than a gesture. This was destiny, standing in a wedding dress and a borrowed jacket. And just as the priest asked her name, Lily fainted. The guests screamed. Robert rushed forward, catching her before she hit the floor. Her small cross necklace slipped from her neck, landing in his palm. He stared at it, frozen, because he'd seen that same necklace before, years ago. Somewhere he thought he'd never see it again. The church erupted into chaos. Someone shouted for a doctor, others rushed forward, but Robert was already kneeling on the marble floor, his arms cradling Lily's fragile body. Her skin was cold, her breathing shallow. The soaked fabric of her shirt clung to her, revealing bruises, small, faded, but real. And in his hand, that necklace. A simple silver cross with a crack through its center. He knew that necklace. He had seen it once, years ago, hanging from the neck of a young woman who had changed his life forever. Robert froze. Could it be? No, it couldn't. That woman's daughter would be grown by now. The priest's voice broke through the confusion. "She needs help, Robert. We must take her somewhere safe." Without a word, Robert lifted her into his arms. The guests whispered, phone still recording, but he didn't hear a single sound. He only saw her pale face and that cross glinting under the chandelier light. Outside, rain was still pouring. He carried her through it, straight to his car. When Lily woke up hours later, she was lying on a soft bed surrounded by white sheets. The faint smell of antiseptic filled the air. She blinked, disoriented. Then she saw him, Robert, sitting by her bedside, still in his suit, the tie loosened, eyes red from exhaustion. Where am I?" she whispered. "Somewhere safe," he said quietly. "You fainted. You haven't eaten, have you?" Her stomach growled in reply. He smiled faintly, then handed her a tray of soup. She stared at it, hesitant. "Why are you doing this?" He hesitated before answering. "Because no one did it for me when I needed it." That silence between them was thick, heavy, like they both recognized a sadness they couldn't yet name. As she ate, her eyes wandered to the bedside table. The necklace, her mother's necklace, lay there. Her breath caught. You touched it?" "I found it," he said softly. "It fell when you fainted." Her eyes softened. "It's the only thing I have left of my mom." Robert swallowed hard. What was her name? Lily looked down. "Clara." Robert's hands went still. That name, Clara, hit him like thunder. He turned away, hiding his face. "Clara," he whispered, almost to himself. Lily looked at him curiously. "You knew her?" He didn't answer. Not yet. Because if what he was thinking was true, if the woman he once loved had left behind a daughter, then the girl in front of him wasn't a stranger at all. She was part of the life he'd lost. Just then, a knock came at the door. His assistant, nervously holding a phone, whispered, "Sir, the press found out. They're saying you brought a homeless girl from your wedding into your house." Robert exhaled slowly, staring at the sleeping girl again. For the first time in years, he didn't care what the world thought, because he knew fate had just handed him a second chance. But little did he know, that same fate was about to test him in ways he could never imagine. The night had grown quiet. Only the ticking clock and the soft hum of rain against the window filled the silence of the mansion. Lily was asleep, curled beneath the thick blanket Robert had laid over her. Robert sat nearby, holding that cracked silver cross in his palm, staring at it like it was a ghost from his past. He couldn't shake the name. Clara. The woman he once loved more than life itself. The one he'd pushed away. Years ago, before the money, before the company, Robert was just another young man trying to build a future. He'd fallen in love with a woman who worked at a coffee shop. Clara. She had kind eyes, a contagious laugh, and a dream of becoming a teacher. But his parents hated her. "She's not your kind," they said. "You'll ruin your life with a girl like that." And back then, Robert listened. He let their voices drown out his heart. He walked away from Clara, left her standing in the rain with tears in her eyes and a letter she never got to give him. He built his empire after that. Got rich, powerful, but never happy. He had traded love for ambition, and the guilt followed him everywhere. Now, decades later, sitting beside a girl named Lily, wearing Clara's necklace, that old guilt came roaring back. He picked up his phone and called his lawyer, his voice trembling. "Find me everything you can about a woman named Clara," he said quietly. "She would have lived in Maple Street about 20 years ago. And see if she ever had a daughter." The next morning, Robert was in his office when the lawyer came in with a thin folder. Robert's hands shook as he opened it. Inside was a photo, faded, grainy, but there she was, Clara, holding a little girl in her arms. And the little girl was Lily. Robert's vision blurred. His breath caught in his chest. The lawyer spoke softly. "Clara passed 10 years ago. Her daughter was taken into foster care, but records say she ran away at 16. There's no trace of her since." Robert closed the folder slowly. The guilt hit him like a wave. All this time, he'd been searching for redemption in the wrong places. In money, in success, in hollow relationships, when the only person who could have forgiven him had already left this world. But her daughter was right here. When Lily woke up later that day, she found Robert sitting by the fireplace, holding the photo. She noticed the tears in his eyes. "Why are you crying?" she asked gently. He looked up, his voice breaking. "Because I knew your mother." She froze. You what?" He nodded slowly. "Clara. She was my first love." Her lips parted in shock. "That can't be. You left her." Robert swallowed hard. "Yes. And it was the biggest mistake of my life." Tears filled her eyes as she stared at him. "She told me about you. Not by name, but she said there was a man once. A man she loved, who couldn't love her back the way she deserved." Robert's shoulders trembled. "She deserved the world. And I gave her pain instead." The silence between them was unbearable. Lily finally whispered, "She never stopped loving you, you know. Even when she got sick, she said you had a good heart. She said, maybe one day you'd find it again." That broke him. The tears he'd held for years finally came. He fell to his knees beside her chair, clutching her hand like a man begging for forgiveness. "I can't change the past, Lily," he said through tears. "But if you'll let me, I want to make things right. For her. For you." She didn't answer right away. Instead, she reached out and placed the cracked cross necklace in his palm. "My mom always said broken things can still shine," she whispered. "Maybe this is your chance to prove it." Robert looked at her, and for the first time in decades, he smiled through his tears. A genuine, trembling smile. But just then, a knock came at the door. It was the same reporter who had been snooping outside the mansion. And he wasn't alone. Behind him stood a woman, Robert's ex-fiancée, Emily. And the look in her eyes said she wasn't here for forgiveness. The heavy oak doors opened with a sharp creak. Rain poured behind her, but Emily stood in the doorway untouched, polished, composed, and cruelly calm. Her eyes swept the room, landing first on Robert, then on Lily. "So it's true," she said, her voice sharp as glass. "You left your own wedding for a stray girl." Robert rose slowly from his chair, his face unreadable. "Emily, this isn't your business anymore." "Oh, it's very much my business," she shot back. "You humiliated me. You walked out in front of the entire city. You think the board won't find out? You've destroyed everything you built." Lily flinched at the venom in her voice. Robert stepped in front of her, shielding her instinctively. "What I destroyed," he said quietly, "was a lie I've been living in for years." Emily laughed coldly. "A lie? That lie built your empire. Without me, you'd still be that pathetic man trying to impress your parents." Robert's voice was steady now, grounded. "Maybe that's what I needed, to stop impressing people who never saw the real me." Emily's eyes narrowed. "And what about her?" She pointed at Lily. "What is she to you? A charity project?" Lily stood, trembling. "I didn't ask for any of this," she whispered. But Robert took her hand. His grip was firm, protective, like he was anchoring her to something real. "She's my chance," he said, his voice breaking. "My chance to do something good, something right." Emily's mask cracked for the first time. "You're throwing everything away for a girl you just met?" Robert's eyes softened. "I didn't just meet her. I met my past. And my future." He reached into his pocket and pulled out the cracked silver cross. "Her mother was Clara," he said quietly. "You remember the name, don't you?" Emily froze, just for a moment, then her face hardened. "So this is guilt. You're doing all this because of guilt." Robert shook his head. "No, because of love. The kind I ran from once, and won't run from again." The silence that followed was deep. The kind that fills every corner of a room and chokes the air. Emily finally turned, her voice bitter and small. "You'll regret this, Robert." He looked at her sadly. "I already did. 4 years." When she left, the rain swallowed her figure, and the door closed softly behind her. Robert turned to Lily. Her eyes shimmered with tears, but this time, they weren't from fear. "What happens now?" she whispered. He smiled faintly. "You tell me. You're the one who walked into a stranger's life and turned it upside down." Lily laughed through her tears. "I didn't mean to. Neither did I," he said. "But maybe that's how miracles happen." Days passed. The news storm faded. The scandal turned into whispers, then into silence. But in that quiet space, something beautiful grew. Robert rebuilt the foundation he once ran from, not a company, but a home. He opened a community center in Clara's name, offering education, shelter, and a place to start over, just like Lily had. And every morning he'd see her there, standing by the garden, sunlight glinting off that repaired cross now resting around her neck. Sometimes she'd look at him and smile softly. "You really think people can change?" He'd nod, only when they finally remember who they were meant to be. The two of them walked side by side through the open gates one morning, as children's laughter filled the air. For the first time in his life, Robert wasn't haunted by what he'd lost. He was grateful for what he'd found. Because fate didn't just bring Lily to his door. It brought him back to himself. If this story touched your heart, don't leave just yet. There's another SoulTwist story waiting. Another moment of grace, love, and redemption. Subscribe now, and keep watching, because sometimes the most unexpected moments lead us home.